The rain had started before sunrise and never stopped. By noon, the city sidewalks were rivers of gray water, carrying away leaves, trash, and the hurried footsteps of strangers who had places to be. A black luxury car sat parked 2 blocks away from a crowded bus station. No one paid attention to it. No one noticed the man who stepped out of the vehicle, removed his expensive watch, slipped off his tailored coat, and exchanged it for a worn jacket that looked 20 years old. To everyone passing by, he was just another struggling man trying to stay dry. But he wasn't. His name was Ethan Brooks. At 46 years old, Ethan was one of the wealthiest men in America. His technology company had transformed him from a small-town dreamer into a billionaire whose face appeared on magazine covers and business news channels. People called him a visionary, an innovator, a genius. Yet despite all the praise, Ethan felt something missing. For years, he had funded charities, donated millions to hospitals, and sponsored community programs. His accountant sent reports showing how many lives his money had helped. Still, he couldn't shake a troubling question. Did people care about others because they were kind? Or because they expected something in return? The question haunted him. So he created an unusual experiment. Without telling anyone, Ethan would spend several days moving through the city disguised as an ordinary man with almost nothing. No security team. No assistants. No billionaire status. Just a stranger. He wanted to see humanity without wealth standing between him and the truth. What he discovered wasn't encouraging. Most people avoided eye contact. Several brushed past him as though he didn't exist. One man accidentally dropped a dollar bill near Ethan's feet, then snatched it back before Ethan could even point it out. A woman leaving an expensive cafe looked directly at him when he asked for directions and pretended not to hear. By the third day, Ethan's optimism was fading. Maybe kindness really was rarer than he wanted to believe. That afternoon, the rain grew heavier. Cold water seeped through his shoes. He sat alone on a bench near the bus station, exhausted and disappointed. People rushed by carrying umbrellas. Nobody stopped. Nobody smiled. Nobody seemed to notice him at all. Then he heard a small voice. "Excuse me, sir." Ethan looked up. A little girl stood in front of him. She couldn't have been older than 9. Her bright yellow raincoat was slightly too large, and her sneakers splashed through puddles as she shifted nervously from one foot to the other. Beside her stood a woman Ethan assumed was her mother. The woman appeared tired. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. Her coat was old and patched in several places. They clearly weren't wealthy. The little girl extended a folded piece of paper. "This is for you." Ethan blinked. "For me?" She nodded. "Yes." He accepted the note carefully. Before he could ask anything else, the girl smiled. A genuine smile. The kind that expected nothing in return. Then she turned and hurried away with her mother into the rain. Confused, Ethan unfolded the paper. Inside, written in uneven handwriting, were just 7 words. "You matter even when nobody sees you." For a long moment, Ethan simply stared. The words hit him harder than he expected. Something tightened in his chest. 3 days. 3 days of being ignored. 3 days of feeling invisible. And somehow this child had seen exactly what he needed to hear. On the back of the note was another message. "When I feel sad, my mom tells me this. I hope it helps." Ethan read the words again. Then again. The rain continued falling around him, but suddenly he didn't feel quite as cold. For the first time all week, he smiled. He should have left. The experiment was essentially over. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about the little girl. Who was she? Why would she give a stranger something so personal? The next morning, Ethan returned to the bus station. And the morning after that. Finally, on the 3rd day, he saw her again. She sat beneath a shelter with her mother. The girl was drawing in a notebook while her mother reviewed paperwork. Ethan approached carefully. Hi. The girl's face brightened immediately. You're the noteman. He laughed. I guess I am. Her mother looked embarrassed. I'm sorry if she bothered you. Not at all, Ethan replied. Actually, I wanted to thank her. The woman relaxed. The girl's name was Lily. Her mother's name was Sarah. Over the next hour, Ethan learned pieces of their story. Sarah worked 2 jobs. One at a grocery store. Another cleaning office buildings at night. Despite working constantly, money remained painfully tight. Medical bills from Lily's previous illness had drained nearly everything they had. Some months, paying rent felt impossible. Yet throughout the conversation, neither complained. Neither expressed bitterness. Instead, Lily talked excitedly about school, books, and her dream of becoming a teacher. Sarah spoke proudly about her daughter. Ethan found himself unexpectedly moved. Here were 2 people facing genuine hardship. Yet they possessed more warmth than many millionaires he knew. Before leaving, he asked Lily why she had given him the note. Her answer caught him off guard. You looked lonely. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Lonely. She nodded. My mom says sometimes people need kindness more than money. Sarah looked slightly embarrassed. I say a lot of things. No, Ethan said softly. I think you say exactly the right things. That night, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about them. The next day he quietly arranged for someone to investigate their situation. Not to invade their privacy. Simply to verify what they had shared. The results broke his heart. Sarah was months behind on medical debt. Her landlord had already issued warnings about late rent. The grocery store where she worked was reducing staff hours. Without a change, they might lose their apartment within weeks. Ethan stared at the report. A little girl who had almost nothing had freely given encouragement to a stranger. Meanwhile, countless people with abundance walked past suffering every day. The contrast was impossible to ignore. For the first time in years, philanthropy felt personal. Not numbers. Not reports. People. Real people. A week later, Ethan invited Sarah and Lily to a community event hosted by one of his company's charitable foundations. He didn't reveal his identity. Sarah hesitated at first. Eventually Lily convinced her. The event took place in a large downtown auditorium. Families filled the seats. Children laughed. Music played softly. Sarah seemed confused. Why are we here? Ethan smiled. You'll see. A few moments later, the host stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. The audience applauded. Then giant screens illuminated behind the stage. A photograph appeared. It was Ethan. Not disguised. The real Ethan Brooks. Sarah's eyes widened. Lily gasped. She looked from the screen to the men sitting beside her. Then back again. No way. Ethan stood. The room erupted in applause. Shock spread across Sarah's face. You. He nodded gently. Yes. Tears immediately filled her eyes. Lily looked utterly speechless. Ethan walked onto the stage. For a moment he simply stood there, looking at the audience. Then he began speaking. Most people know me as a businessman. A billionaire. A CEO. The crowd listened quietly. But recently, I spent several days disguised as someone with nothing. Murmurs rippled through the room. I wanted to understand how people treat strangers when there's nothing to gain. His voice softened. Honestly, I was disappointed. The auditorium fell silent. Then I met a little girl. A spotlight found Lily in the audience. Her cheeks turned red. She handed me a note. Ethan carefully removed the folded paper from his pocket. The same paper. The same 7 words. You matter even when nobody sees you. Many people in the audience wiped away tears. Ethan swallowed hard. That note changed me. He looked directly at Lily. You gave kindness without knowing who I was. His eyes moved to Sarah. And you raised a daughter who understands compassion better than many adults. Sarah was openly crying now. So today, I want to give something back. The screen behind him changed. New information appeared. Sarah covered her mouth. The audience gasped. Every medical bill. Paid in full. Their apartment secured for the next 5 years. A college fund established for Lily. Additional financial support to help Sarah build a stable future. The crowd rose to its feet. Thunderous applause filled the room. But Ethan wasn't finished. He raised his hand. The applause gradually faded. These gifts aren't rewards. His voice trembled slightly. They're reminders. He looked at the audience. A reminder that kindness matters. Another pause. A reminder that every person has value. His gaze returned to Lily. And a reminder that sometimes the richest person in the room isn't the one with the most money. At that moment, Lily ran onto the stage. The audience laughed through their tears. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around Ethan. He hugged her back. For a second, neither spoke. Then Lily whispered something only he could hear. You looked less lonely today. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. For years he had searched for meaning through success, achievements, and wealth. Yet a child had taught him what truly mattered. Connection. Compassion. Humanity. Months later, Ethan launched a nationwide initiative inspired by Lily's note. The program focused on small acts of kindness in communities across America. Schools participated. Businesses joined. Neighborhoods organized volunteer projects. Millions of people became involved. But the original note remained framed in Ethan's office. Visitors often asked why such a simple piece of paper occupied the most prominent place on the wall. Ethan always gave the same answer. Because it's worth more than everything else in this room. And he meant it. The little girl never intended to change a billionaire's life. She wasn't seeking recognition. She wasn't hoping for money. She simply saw someone who looked lonely and offered kindness. That was all. Yet sometimes that's all it takes. A few words. A small gesture. A moment of compassion. Because the greatest changes in the world rarely begin with power, wealth, or influence. They begin when one human being chooses to remind another that they matter. Even when nobody else sees them.